When your internal signal starts shifting, it won't feel like relief at first. It'll feel like interference. Your mind can start changing before your awareness catches up. That gap is not dysfunction, it's neuroplastic delay. Most people think burnout means stop. Biologically, it often means misfiled data is looping too loud for your mind to sort. Your mind doesn't always go quiet when you rest. It reorganizes. That can increase mental noise. Stress hormones drop before your thoughts do. That's why it feels like nothing's working, when it actually already is. If regulated states feel suspicious, that doesn't mean you're stuck. It means your prediction model hasn't been updated yet. I've tracked this delay in research, and I've lived it. Repatterning never feels like the right thing to do in the beginning. If you're confused by your own signals right now, that's a sign we're in the middle of something measurable. It's launch day, as you can see. I'm so excited. Help in a Hurry is officially in your hands, and I want to do something a little different today. I want to talk about the kind of healing that doesn't look good yet, the kind that happens while you're still holding down a job, still texting people back, still cooking dinner for someone who has no idea your mind is trying to crawl out of its own loops. This book wasn't written in hindsight. It was written mid-practice, inside spirals, inside stress responses, inside moments where my own nervous system wasn't quite sure who was leading anymore, my mind or my brain. That's the part nobody prepares you for. Healing in real time. When your brain is still coded for prediction error, expecting the next hit, the next disappointment, the next invisible gut punch, healing doesn't feel like progress. It feels like instability. Because when your brain has learned to equate pressure with normal, peace registers as unfamiliar. But here's the truth. Your mind can override that pattern. Not instantly, but repeatedly, with structure, with permission, with daily mental rehearsal that builds new internal credibility over time. This is what Help in a Hurry is about. It isn't about a checklist. It's a map designed for people healing mid-chaos. It's a guide for people healing while still in motion, while raising kids, while paying bills, while remembering to breathe. So in today's episode, I want to read you parts of this book directly, not just the polished quotes, but the parts that crack something open. The parts that only made sense after my brain had begun rewiring around what my mind had already committed to practicing. This book is already out. What matters now is how it walks with you, page by page, practice by practice. And in this week's episode, we're launching Help in a Hurry. I'm so excited, and unpacking the real science behind healing when you don't have time to fall apart. Before we get started, I want you to know this book took years to build. Years of sorting the research, rewriting tools, sitting with people in the middle of their mess, sitting with myself in mine. If this show helps you feel less alone, if it gives you a name for something you thought was just yours, subscribing tells your brain that this space is safe to return to, that you found somewhere that values depth, honesty, and the daily work of mental leadership. And if you haven't yet ordered Help in a Hurry, this is the moment. Go to helpinahurrybook.com. Now let's continue today's episode. Let's dive into the book. You're functional, but only technically. You answer texts, you show up at work, you nod when people talk, but your inner world feels scrambled. Like your thoughts are out of order and you can't even remember what calm sounds like. This is what it means to try healing in real time. Not with space, not with a perfect plan, but inside a life that's still moving fast, still demanding things from you. In the book I wrote, healing doesn't always come with clarity. That line came after a morning where I had cried in the shower, smiled through a meeting, and completely forgotten what I'd eaten for lunch. Because healing while surviving doesn't feel heroic, it feels fragmented, and recovery is often linked with stillness. But for many, stillness never comes. You start to think something must be wrong with you. You wonder, why am I still so jumpy? Why can't I finish things like I used to? Why do I feel exhausted when nothing major ever happened? Here's what I want you to know. When your brain is still wired for threat, even subtle background threat, it doesn't wait for a disaster to activate. It scans, it braces, it contracts, it drains you. And your mind, unless it interrupts that pattern, will start accepting the survival loop as though it's normal. And that's why the pain of healing in motion doesn't just come from the past, it comes from the dissonance between how capable you appear and how frayed your identity feels underneath it all. You stop recognizing yourself, and there's no new version to hold on to yet. This is why I built Help in a Hurry, because you shouldn't have to collapse before you get a roadmap. We're meant to grow in the middle of the mess, but only if we know how to direct our healing from the inside out. Your mind learns fast and wires your brain even faster, especially under pressure. That's why even when the crisis has passed, your nervous system might still be firing like you're in it, because we live through our nervous system, and survival doesn't shut off just because circumstances change. It has to be interrupted. Let me show you what I mean. One of the key concepts in this book is prediction error. What happens when your brain expects threat, but reality doesn't deliver it? This gap creates confusion inside of your neural circuits, and if the mind isn't leading that gap with clarity, the brain tries to fill it in with old patterns. The brain will finish any story it doesn't feel safe waiting for. That's a line from the book. So even if nothing bad is happening, your brain is still computing and pulling up patterns, and you'll find you may still respond with irritability, withdrawal, hyperscanning, or emotional numbness. The reaction isn't tied to what's now, it's shaped by what the brain has been trained to expect. This is where the non-conscious mind plays a central role. It stores the patterns that don't require conscious thought to run, like how your posture tightens in silence or how your stomach drops when your phone buzzes. And unless the conscious mind steps in to redirect those stored memories, the brain loops them. This is why I say healing isn't about doing more, it's about leading better. Your mind leads, your brain follows. You can't always control your environment, but you can give your brain new cues. That's the function of the neurocycle. It's not just a tool, it's a formula for directed neuroplasticity and a sequence your brain learns to trust, so that even under pressure, your mind can create a pause before the system spirals. When you're healing in real time, that pause is everything. It's not dramatic, it's not obvious to anyone else, but inside your system, that 63-second pause where your mind notices the moment without defaulting to old wiring, that's where rewiring begins. That's where healing gets its start. In the next chapter, we'll talk about the most common stuck points, those beliefs and thought patterns that keep the load heavy, even after the danger has passed. There are certain thoughts that don't feel like thoughts anymore. They feel like facts. I should be over this by now. If I were doing it right, I wouldn't still feel this bad. If I just reframed it better, this would be gone already. If only I got there in time, that wouldn't have happened. I didn't get X done. These aren't just passing doubts, they're embedded beliefs held deep in the non-conscious mind and rehearsed through thousands of small internal reactions. When you've been stuck in this survival mode long enough, your brain will try to conserve energy by defaulting to familiar scripts. It's not a judgment, it's an efficiency strategy. But if your conscious mind doesn't intervene by listening to the solutions from the non-conscious mind, then those scripts shape identity. Let's break down what's actually happening. Let's take this phrase, I should be over this by now. This thought comes from a mismatch between the external time and internal recovery. Mind may consciously know that healing takes time, but your non-conscious stores emotional timestamps that expect resolution on a fixed schedule. Your brain, trying to maintain continuity, keeps reactivating those timestamps every time you encounter a trigger. However, the good news is that the non-conscious also stores the solutions to these toxic thought patterns. And unless your conscious mind attunes to these intuitive prompts and updates those expectations, your brain will just keep looping them because the conscious mind is telling it to loop. You then interpret delay as failure. Let's take the second one. If I were doing it right, I wouldn't still feel this bad. This one runs especially deep for high-achieving people. When emotional pain lingers, the mind can confuse it with evidence of incompetence. But discomfort doesn't always mean dysfunction. Sometimes it's our psychoneurobiology integrating new neural patterns. While the conscious mind is learning to expect something different through listening to the non-conscious, like safety, it may still flag old cues as a threat for a while. That's the rewiring process, not regression. Third one, if I just reframed this better, this would be gone already. Reframing works when it's grounded in repetition and structure, not instant replacement. Your brain doesn't restructure thought trees in one step. It needs repetition, safety, and small daily proof that the new meaning is livable. The mind leads that process through observation, reflection, intuition, and practice. If you rush it, the brain interprets the pressure as danger and doubles down on the old loop. Neuroplasticity doesn't erase pain, it teaches the brain to carry it differently. That's another quote from my book. These patterns may look like personal failings, but they reflect over-practiced thoughts that are generating these beliefs. Ones the mind can interrupt when supported by clear, repeatable structure. A reconstructed thought that lets you observe without collapsing into that self-doubt. That's what the neurocycle gives you. It's a repeatable, permission-based formula and practice that helps your mind redirect the story before the brain reabsorbs it. In the next chapter, we'll shift into a new way of seeing the pain, not as a failure, but as evidence that your system is trying to reorganize. There's a moment in healing when you stop asking, how do I fix this? And you start asking, what is this trying to tell me? Such a big difference. That moment is the beginning of neuro-emotional literacy, a nice word for when your mind learns to interpret emotional signals not as threats but as data. It stops chasing resolution and starts building clarity through learning. This is a great point to be at. This is how the mind transitions the brain from reactivity to internal reorganization. Your brain is wired to respond to what it's rehearsed. If chaos is all it knows, that's what it expects. That's what it prepares for. Chaotic mind, chaotic brain, chaotic life. But the mind can redirect that expectation by noticing, naming, processing, and reconceptualizing what the emotion represents. In the book, I explain how this starts with simple labeling. Instead of thinking, I'm anxious, you say, my system is responding to something it doesn't feel prepared for yet, or something like that. That one shift moves your identity from the emotion to the observer. Another quote from my book I want to tell you, or read to you. You're not fragile, you are data rich. This shift gives your mind a new entry point to restructure meaning, and it only takes around 63 seconds to start this process. Because when your conscious mind, with the help of the non-conscious mind, redefines meaning, it then rewires connection points in the brain. Reconstructed thought trees grow around those redefinitions, and you drive the process. Emotional signals begin routing through the updated circuits, and slowly the same input creates less disruption. This is the essence of reconceptualization, not as rebranding, but as neural restructuring. You're not behind, you're in the part where roots grow. Also from my book. The reframe isn't a trick, it is a command. It tells your brain, we are not in danger. It tells your identity, we are not disappearing. It tells your system, we are ready for something new. That's the power of the mind in motion. And it's what makes lasting change actually possible, even in the middle of a spiral. Next, I'm going to walk you through a reset tool that puts this theory into daily practice. And these tools are in this book. You don't need clarity to start healing. You need a rhythm that your brain can follow when clarity disappears. And I'm going to give you this tool that is in this book. It's called the 3-to-1 ratio, and I'll walk you through it in Help in a Hurry, chapter 13. But here's how it works. We're going to do it together. When a toxic or distressing thought shows up, whether it's fear, anger, self-blame, shutdown, people-pleasing, whatever, your mind interrupts the spiral by intentionally building 3 new thought trees in response. These aren't mantras. They are grounded in truth, lived context, and internal permission. Why 3? Because your brain doesn't regulate from balance, it regulates from shift. One positive thought might register, but 3 begin to change the internal ratio of energy that flows through your thought networks. These are brain waves that are flowing through your thought networks. Let's say the toxic thought is, I'll never catch up. Your mind now builds 3 intention-based counter thoughts. Here they are. 1. My body's allowed to move at the pace of safety. Second one One moment of presence counts more than 1 hour of panic. Third one, I am building capacity, not chasing control. You're not forcing positivity, you are rewiring in a 3-to-1 ratio. 3 positive for each negative. Intentional. Because when the mind adds weight to healthy neural signals, the brain begins to deprioritize the toxic loops. For every toxic thought, find 3 new ones. This ratio helps rewire your response before the spiral becomes automatic. This is from chapter 13. You don't need to believe the thoughts right away. You just need to speak them, write them, hold them, because your non-conscious mind is always guiding you even before your conscious feelings catch up. Used consistently, the 3-to-1 ratio becomes a loop that the brain begins to trust. And in high-pressure moments, trust is everything. And with practice, you can catch a toxic loop with this 3-to-1 ratio in around 63 seconds or less. This is how we build healing into the middle of life, not as a performance, but as a practiced rhythm. In the next chapter, I'll share a live story of how one person used this exact structure to recover mid-spiral. I want to tell you about someone who didn't think she was doing it right. She came to this work during a month where everything was fraying all at once. A breakup, a layoff, a move that wasn't her choice. She told me she kept trying to do the work the right way, but every time she just spiraled. She felt like she was failing. She wasn't failing. Her brain was learning to tolerate the kind of honesty that follows intuition. So she started with the reset tool I just walked you through. But not every day, just when she remembered. At first the tool felt hollow, like her brain wasn't registering the shift, didn't feel real. In about week 3, she caught herself pausing and not freezing, not dissociating, just pausing. Her brain didn't register it as success, but her mind did, and her brain would follow suit because the brain does what the mind tells it to do. She labeled it out loud. This is the part where I stay. That one sentence redirected the spiral, and the next time she caught it sooner. She hadn't mastered anything. Her system had just proved that her mind was staying online. This is how the brain rewires, not from relief, but from repetition led by present mind, by a mind online. Not from consistency alone, but from credibility. When the conscious mind shows up being guided by the wise non-conscious, not to fix but to stay present, the brain builds a different type of association. It stops flagging every emotion as threat, and it starts mapping new cues. It sees emotions as data. The woman I told you about, she told me she still spirals, but they're shorter. She comes back faster. She doesn't lose access to herself the way she used to. She didn't need to be perfect. She needed a moment that proved she was still present and in control. And that's what healing inside your real life looks like. Pattern interruption, practiced often enough to feel like return. In the next chapter, I'll share the single line that helped me understand what this entire book is actually about. Healing in a hurry isn't rushing, it's reordering. And when you reorder, you may not feel okay, and it's okay not to feel okay. When your mind has memorized chaos and wired this chaos into the brain, order feels very foreign. When your identity has been fused with coping, clarity feels a little suspicious. But the moment your mind says, hey, we're allowed to reroute this, something internal recalibrates. You don't need your psychoneurobiological system to agree right away. You need it to witness the new input over and over until the old circuit loses priority. This is how reconceptualization works. Pain doesn't vanish, but your mind can give it a new position within the network your brain uses to respond. You teach your brain how to hold discomfort without assigning it panic. That shift doesn't show up as clarity at first. It shows up as a hesitation, as silence, as the space where an old thought used to be. And in that space, your mind begins to write something new and restructured. And while this is happening, it's okay to not feel okay. This is how your mind helps your identity outgrow old roles that once felt permanent. One sentence, one pause, one repattern spiral. That's enough to prove to your brain that your mind is still leading. Every time you pause a loop, even if only for a breath or a technique like the 3-to-1 ratio, you re-establish leadership over the toxic thought and the interaction between your conscious processing and your non-conscious signals. This isn't performance, it's practice. And that practice rewires your inner world more than any single breakthrough. When healing feels small, it's often because your brain is learning to trust something new, and your mind is walking slowly enough to be believed. If you've been listening today while holding your breath through your own invisible battle, this book was built for you. Because healing in a hurry doesn't mean you're impatient. It means life didn't wait. It means you had to keep functioning even when your thoughts felt jagged. It means the strategies that kept you moving forward became so automatic, your brain treated them like identity. And this is why Help in a Hurry exists. To give your mind the lead again. To show your brain what safety repetition looks like. To remind your identity that it doesn't have to fracture just because your schedule never slowed down. Healing follows a circuit, one built through repeated interaction between internal cues and mental leadership. The neurocycle is that circuit. It's not a reset, it's a rhythmic formula. And when your brain experiences that rhythm enough times, it stops flagging every new emotion as instability. It's what happens when the same input, emotional cue, thought trigger, body signal, meets a new decision over and over again. And it's okay if your brain doesn't feel that shift yet, because the mind is ahead of the pattern. It leads the way. The mind is holding a map the brain doesn't fully recognize yet, but it will. Our lives are rooted in biology, yet we can abstractly contemplate our biology with our mind. You've already started. You started the first time you labeled the chaos. You started the first time you paused instead of spiraling. You started the first time you let a sentence be enough. Those aren't small moments, they are rewiring events. This isn't just a book. It's a structure for reclaiming your mind, 1 page, 1 hour, 1 spiral at a time. So let the structure walk with you. Let the neurocycle become the language your brain learns to trust. Let this be the moment where healing doesn't mean fixing, but leading. Because the mind can do that, and the brain will follow. And that's what this episode has been pointing towards. Not a single takeaway, but a pathway, one you can return to again and again. And the first step only takes 63 seconds. If you've been holding your breath while trying to keep your life intact, Help in a Hurry was built for that version of you. Not the version with a morning routine and margin. The one who spiraled yesterday. The one who held it together in front of people who didn't know you were barely there. This book isn't full of slogans, it's full of structure. It gives your mind a way to step in on the days when your brain is defaulting to patterns you thought you already outgrew. Inside Help in a Hurry, you'll find daily tools for staying mentally present while still in motion. Real-world guidance for spirals, flashbacks, shutdowns, and sensory overload. A step-by-step walkthrough of the neurocycle with dozens of lived-in examples. It's the companion I wish I had when I was unraveling between responsibilities. This wasn't built for display, it was built to be used when your mind needs backup and your brain needs rhythm. You can order Help in a Hurry now at helpinahurrybook.com or pick it up everywhere where books are sold. Remember, you don't have to collapse to be allowed to heal. You don't have to quit your life to make room for your mind. You just need tools to know where to meet you. Help in a Hurry was built to be one of them. Let your mind lead, let your brain follow, and let your mind finally exhale.